What's up, everybody? Thralls Metal here once again. I'm Necrotic Nick.
Miller.
Jammin Jon.
And we have an album review for you, and one that is definitely anticipated amongst people that like insanely brutal music. So we're going to go over the new album from Sanguisugabogg, Homicidal Ecstasy. This comes out on the 3rd of February on Century Media Records. It's been formed in 2019 in Columbus, Ohio. This is their second album overall, and they kind of hit like an explosion of popularity through their original demo, Pornographic Seizures, which I fucking loved, and then they made their giant, almost kind of major label debut, at least in terms of metal, like they got to Century Media with Tortured Whole, and that album kind of became like an underground fave to either love or hate. There really wasn't a lot of middle ground. Like, you
Which
either...
is really odd.
Yeah, I know. Like, you either really like this band or you're like, man, fuck those dudes. And their fucking logo is ridiculous. It looks like someone jizzed spaghetti all over the fucking place.
I think it's hilarious.
It is. I love it. Because, like, all right, I can kind of get why some people don't like them, because I think there's like a sort of like inside joke about brutal death metal in general with them. And I think that's something I really fucking appreciate about them. And they're back with yet another fucking nasty slab of brutality. This is their first one without their guitarist Cameron Boggs, who left the band, I think, in 2021. And he was the principal songwriter on Tortured Whole, I believe. Like, a lot of those songs were his, so I kind of expected some change. That and the fact that they didn't write this album on acid, which I found out in an interview recently, which kind of explains a lot about Tortured Whole.
Sure.
Because that was a very strange album.
I mean, they took the Ween approach to write an album. Nothing wrong with that.
Just brutality
It's
and
fine.
spaciness. And songs about dicks being filleted. And yeah, back to that again.
I can't. 2 years later, and I still can't say dick fillet without laughing.
Dude, we did so many fucking takes of that, you guys have no idea. So, well, alright. Flat out, this is Sanguisugabogg. A lot of the stuff that you liked or hated about Sanguisugabogg is definitely intact on here. This is brutal, groovy, just disgustingly heavy at pretty much every single possible moment on this. And, well, this is a little bit different and familiar at the same time. Like, this is a different album than Tortured Whole. Like, I feel like it's less crazy, but a little bit tighter overall. Like, this is much easier to get into than Tortured Whole was initially, because I had to go through that one multiple times to kind of figure out what the fuck was going on.
Kind of dissect it.
This one, like, kind of right away, I was like, yeah, this feels more straight ahead. Like the opening track, Black Market Vasectomy. You know what? Just pay the fucking money. Don't get the home kit. That sounds ridiculous.
I mean, it's 2023, though, you know.
Inflation and shit.
Times are tough, right?
Yeah.
Insurance premiums are expensive.
They really are. I'm paying them now, and that's just, I don't know.
Yeah, but if you fuck up, you're just going to be down there looking at your fucking bloody balls like, why did I do this to me? Anyway, the song is really, really solid. Opening, just fucking, just brutality. It just commences with the chug-a-thon immediately. Groovy, very tight, you know, lots of fucking nasty guttural roars. I'm pretty much prepping you for the bulk of this album right there. Some really cool, crazy, jazzy drum fills, which their drummer is just fucking nuts.
Top notch. The drum work on this record is absolutely insane. He doesn't really stick to one solid theme as far as drumming is concerned. There are blast beats, there are insane turnovers, the transitions are crazy. There's a lot of drum and bass groove throughout this album, which is really cool. And first of all, I want to mention, thank God that the snare is not as pingy as it once was. I think that was actually a tremendous downfall, in my opinion, for Tortured Whole. The drums sound a little bit more like drums.
Yeah, I will admit, when they get like really blasty in here, like namely songs like Skin Cushion, that pinginess kind of comes back. I think I wrote, what, it sounds like a woodpecker trying to hammer its way through an iron skillet. It's still loud, but for the most part, like, the overall tone of the snare is not so jarring. Like, it's not the Saint Anger fucking plunk that no one likes.
I think that they would have just dialed the volume down on the snare just a hair. it'd be all right.
Yeah, because the drums are definitely in your face.
Yeah,
they're punchy and tight, and they're
very
there.
much that like Igor in your face drums.
Yeah.
Very big up front in the mix.
Yep.
Which works really well for this music that they're doing, which is just fucking crushing. They show you right off the bat that they do a tremendous job of driving the beat and the rhythm and just getting it right in your face the whole time.
I would say like a good chunk of this album is built on syncopated heavy chugs, and this guitar tone is born to chug.
Yes.
It is thick, it is fucking gnarly, and underneath those guitars is a filthy, sludgy low end. The bass on here is absolutely disgusting. The song Testicular Rot, I literally felt both of my nuts shaking in that opening fucking just droning, heavy, disgusting riff.
And the drumming patterns he chooses in that song in particular, they just work tremendously well for everything. To move the song along, keep you engaged, and just, I don't know, listening to him drum is just infectious on its own.
Well, there's a lot of like really neat off-time grooves that are centered more towards the drums. Like the drums carry the transition of all these riffs, because the riffs are kind of straightforward, but the way he weaves in and out of these riffs with these neat off-time fills and grooves really kind of sets it apart.
Yeah, the cymbal accents too. Like out of nowhere, you get these like little like dancing ride cymbal accents that'll come out of nowhere, or like a quick fill that I don't know. It seems just a little off, but like off in a right way. Like I like that little off time, little flair to the song. But a lot of this is essentially driving home the chug and the brutality. I think Devin's vocals on here are exceptionally fucking brutal, but also a little bit different. He's got a few more mid-register growls that I think actually kind of open it up a little bit in terms of his delivery, because a lot of it is kind of like on the riff for the most part, and then he'll kind of, you know, bounce outside of it when there's like a slightly more crawling, like atonal riff, like songs like Mortal Admonishment or Proclamation of the Frail, where it kind of goes back to just like straight up death metal, albeit played through a brutal death metal filter. Like you get some more like incantation, like dissonance. It's a little bit more sinister and evil, but they use that as kind of a setup to get into the more brutal stuff later. But yeah, his vocals are really fucking good on here, and there's even some like atmospheric whispers on Skin Cushion, which I thought was different. Like you really didn't have anything like that on the last one.
That song in particular was a little more chaotic at that point in the album, because everything, like you guys have been saying, has been straightforward. It's pretty kind of stripped down a little bit from what they did, but for me in a fantastic way. It makes it definitely more approachable for the average listener, if you will. But I like, of course, the caveman mentality of some of the death metal coming out, and their version of this stuff, their version of them at a more basic level is fucking killer. It's brutal. They pull the rug out from you, and then they throw a fucking mountain on top of you, and they do it repeatedly, and it's fucking nuts.
This album, Unga Bunga's pretty fucking hard.
Yeah, they took a page out of Tribal Gaze's book, out of Frozen Soul's book. You can tell.
It does feel like a little bit more stripped down without the weirdness. Like, this is the caveman before it discovered mushrooms and consciousness and all that shit. This is the caveman that just unga bunga'd and beat people over the head and rode a mastodon to work if he had a job or whatever. I don't know how cavemans did. But this is before he ate shrooms. I definitely know that.
A Lesson in Savagery, that song for me is like brutal as fuck. It's in your face. Like the whole album is really in your face. It's just a face punch the whole time. And that off time part in that song is fucking killer. Cody Davidson, everything you're doing on the drums, like we said, is fantastic. Whatever you're doing, keep doing. Don't let anyone else tell you whatever you're doing is wrong, because it's not. Every decision you made on this album is fucking killer. And it fits. It's got enough like feel to it and emotion. Like I hear a lot of these different drummers that I like in your swing to it, like the Jimmy Bower of it, the Pete Sandoval with some of your blast beats and shit like that.
And A Lesson in Savagery actually showed off something that I don't think was necessarily on Tortured Whole, but kind of shows up here as like old school, like just dirty Meshuggah riffs. Like just dirty, straightforward, syncopated, disgusting, down to droning riffs that, you know, it has like its own sort of unique brutal flair. Like there's tons of riffs on here that chug, like all of them. But these stand out as just like those just straight up ugly Meshuggah riffs that and they kind of have their own sort of vibe.
Yeah, it was kind of a special moment because it doesn't really appear on the rest of the record much like that, where it's centralized into this one specific groove. It lasts for quite some time, but it's straight up like Chaos Fear.
There's a couple moments that are semi like Meshuggah-ish on Hungry for Your Insides and Mortal Admonishment. I keep coming back to Mortal Admonishment because it's fucking awesome. But yeah, like just that little added flair, and there's some other stuff in here that's a little bit different than say the last one and kind of shows their growth.
You know, those two I kind of pointed to or noted that the Meshuggah reference and even Fear Factory at their most brutal, just maybe the syncopation of it and the very direct, you know, bass drum with it at those points, maybe associating, but I mean, Fear Factory at their heaviest was fucking brutal.
Soul of a New Machine, like, actually, there's some stuff in here that I think is kind of comparable to that first Fear Factory album, which is still brutal as hell.
The record overall, too, is jam-packed full of riffs. More riffs than I think I've heard from this band really ever. There's a lot of different dynamic going on. It moves from off-time grooves to chugs to a couple of jazzy moments, or even the brutal disco that's in Pissed.
I love that.
There's just like a disco, maybe? But tons of fucking riffs all over this album.
Honestly, the disco beat part coming after like some sections where there's like that old school two-step sort of like brutal fucking death metal / grindcore punkiness. Like, I just feel like there's an idea we could just do a two-step here. It's like, no, let's slow it down and kind of put a little bit of fucking boogie in it. It's just fun.
And going back to Mortal Admonishment, you know, for a relatively new band and pretty young, I think.
Yeah. And Pissed, I think, is a good example of, like, songwriting maturity. Like, I use the term maturity loosely because, again, you look at the song titles, look at the album cover, maturity.
Right.
But that one opens up a little bit different than a lot of tracks on here. Like, it's notably more doomy, more dark, like, kind of slower and lumbering. And there's some stuff on here that I think they kind of get outside of just their straightforward brutal death metal chugging that I think is really good. Namely, again, Mortal Admonishment, I think is honestly the universal favorite there.
Yes.
More dark tremolo riffs, like there's some more incantation nods on there. Like it's a little bit more dissonant, more atmospheric. And Proclamation of the Frail, also just kind of more straight up death metal. Like it has its brutal death metal elements, but there's just more riff driven elements to it. And again, riffs are something I think stand out here. Yeah. But there's also stuff that, you know, is just straight up brutal chugging. Nothing wrong with that, but I do think in some respect they kind of go to the well a little bit much in there, especially when they show off that they can do stuff differently and still incorporate all those cool brutal chugs all over the place.
I don't really have too many knocks for this record. I have one minor production knock, and it's not really that bad. The guitars, they chug like nobody's business, and that's awesome. There are little melodies that appear in this record, like Narcissistic Incisions, where there's this cool kind of creepy crawler riff, and you can definitely tell that there's a lot more going on in the riffing other than just a straightforward chug, but there's so much low end on this album that the melodies kind of get hidden a little bit. Like, you really got to kind of listen for them. You can definitely hear them, but they're not prominent by any means. And I don't know if that was on purpose or if it was just something that was maybe overlooked. But, like, the guitars are so crunchy and hefty that it does drown out a little bit of the melody. I guess that's my only, like, real gripe, per se.
Think Roger from Mortician. Like,
I said Mortician earlier, like...
They're that bottom heavy, and... I mean, honestly, like it's not like a universal tone if I think you want melody because the high end on it is kind of so minimal, but this album's built to chug. My gripes are relatively minimal. I do think the singles were kind of like some of the weaker material. Like, I don't think they're necessarily bad songs. I just think compared to songs that show up in here, like, again, Lesson and Savagery, is fucking disgusting. Testicular Rot is amazing, and that there's a lot of context involved in saying that. But the singles themselves, they kind of feel like they were the safe ones to put out. And those songs feel like slightly safer than, you know, say the rest of the album. I do think that this kind of gets a little one note at certain spots, like, you know, Necrosexual Deviant, to me really didn't stand out much. And then you have Hungry for Your Insides, which is awesome for the full minute and like 10 seconds it's there, but it kind of leaves you like, I feel like that's just sort of an incomplete thought, like a half song that was thrown on there. I just found when the riffs were more creative, that's when the songs really stood out, and they could still employ all the brutality that they're known for, because, I mean, when you get down to like those big chuggy breakdowns, which, again, it's like literally every song.
Oh, yeah.
They are fucking massive. Like, they hit like a ton of fucking bricks and another ton on top of that, too. Because
yeah, like
they want to make sure you're nice and dead as shit.
Like the breakdowns in Skin Cushion. There's 2 breakdowns in that song. Both of them are disgustingly gross. So especially the second one, dude. The second one is so sour lemoned. Ugh.
Go back to what John said a little bit with the guitars. Yeah, I kind of have that same vibe. But me, the guitars, I love what they're doing so much. Like, just crank them bitches up a little bit, you know? Maybe duck them, duck the kick drum on them, the EQ. But crank the bitches up, man. Crank them up. So I have very minor gripes, obviously, about this album, which is why I'm going to give it a 4.5 out of 5. Solid. It speaks to me on a lot of different ways. The caveman, the stripped downness of it, but the drums still fill everything out. They keep everything moving. The vocals are solid. There's not too many dull points in this, and when there is a dull point, like you guys said in Narcissistic Incisions, it's kind of needed. You need a little breather there. So I appreciated it, and they didn't totally drop it off. And speaking of drop-offs, every damn fucking breakdown is a drop. It totally just like hits you, and you know where it is, obviously. We've been listening to music our whole lives. We know where the breakdown is. We know. But damn, they just pull, like I said, they pulled the rug out for me, and Cody with the drums does a great job of building that up in those sporadic fills, and then just boom, silence for just a brief moment, and then goes into this fucking thing that just makes everything land right where it should be. I don't have much negative about this album, and this is going to be something that's going to be spinning in my phone for a while.
For me personally, I'm going to give it a 4. I think there's a lot more focus going on here. There's some definite dynamics that have been added. Like I said, I don't have really a whole lot of gripes. The guitar tone a little bit. And I have to agree with Nick. The 2 singles that they released, in my opinion, are more of, I think, trying to maybe placate a little bit to their audience, to show them like, hey, we've still got it. We've still got the sound you're looking for. But they seem like slightly watered down versions of the rest of the record, because the rest of the record showcases a whole lot more than what's in those singles. I don't know if that's really a gripe, because they're still badass. I still enjoy the record. It is heavy as fucking nuts. It doesn't let up. There's not, from the very moment, from the very first note in Black Market Vasectomy to the end in Feeling for Bloodshed, they never really let up at all. They play a little bit more to those kind of jazzy moments that they had. I like the drum and bass grooves. I didn't really get a chance to touch on those a whole lot, but the moments where the drum and bass are isolated together play really well. I think the album flows well, and I think it's a fucking banger. Good job. So 4 for me.
I'm going to go with a 3.5. It's closer to the 4 side than it is the 3 side. I think this is really good. Honestly, I think it is an improvement over Tortured Whole in some respects. It's tighter. It's more just straightforward and driven. Like, you can headbang to this all throughout. Yes. Tortured Whole, you might be a little bit confused, especially if you're reading the song titles. You still might be confused reading the song titles in this one, but it doesn't matter. This is brutal death metal. It's supposed to be loose and fun, and they capture that this grooves hard. I think there's more blast beats. There's more intensity in some spots. I think when they showcase stuff that is outside of just the brutal death metal range, they really showcase that they can write some clever songs. Mm-hmm. Again, Mortal Admonishment. What a fucking beast of a song. And Testicular Rot is fucking incredible. There's just some songs in here I feel like they kind of just, dialed it in a little bit. Like, they're a little bit safer. They're still good. They still deliver on all the fucking brutality you could ever fucking want from this band. But, when you showcase something else that I think is possibly a little bit more forward-thinking than, what they're doing on the rest of the album, it's like, wow, I'd kind of like to hear more of that. So, I don't know. It's like, Neanderthal versus Cro-Magnon. It's like, oh, you've evolved slightly, but don't worry. You still unga-bunga and carry a big old fucking club with a dinosaur tooth in it or some shit. I don't know. A lot of this chugs. Like, that is kind of the main fucking mode of this album. It's kind of the main mode of this band is they like to chug. They like to chug and groove and beat you over the head.
It's all the stuff I like. Sign me up for
talk
all
about
that.
Silly shit and do it really well.
Sign me up for all that
Dude, the video for Face Ripped Off is pretty legit.
It is pretty legit. I dig this album. I think it's really solid. I definitely recommend you check it out. Like, if you're a fucking fan of brutal death metal, check it out. And honestly, if you're one of those people that are on the fence as to whether or not to like this band or hate them, give them a chance. Listen to them.
Yep.
They're a fucking solid band. I know, like, people rag on them because they got more fucking shirt designs than they have songs. Like, so? The fucking shirt designs are nuts.
So is
And they sell.
Yeah. Just check them out. That's the main thing. This is just the fucking fun, kind of silly, but brutal as fuck album, and I dig it.
And if you dig this, give us a good old thumbs up there on there. Hit the notifications if you want to. And Denver Death Fest is going along. We're going to be making some more announcements here.
Yeah.
As we get chugging along, it's getting fucking cool, man. I'm stoked for us.
Yeah, I'm very excited. The more that we talk about it and the more that this comes together, I'm really both excited and proud, kind of honored, I guess, to be a part of something like this, because I never thought that would be the case, to be honest. But it's really growing into a machine, and there are some really neat things coming. I really can't wait for this to pop off.
Barry Manilow, that's what's popping off. He's the headliner, day 2, right?
Oh, I mean,
we weren't gonna tell him that.
Fuck, I'm sorry, guys.
What a fucking dick. We
Oh.
weren't gonna say that, but dick face here.
I already leaked the fucking air supply thing. We're still on for that, right?
I mean,
Is that day 3?
That's
it's a private showing.
yeah, it's a private showing. It's a private.
We paid good money for
showing.
air supply. We're
Yep.
taking it all for ourselves, guys.
There's only 6 tickets available for the day 4 air supply. It's a very intimate type thing. We booked a bathroom in an undisclosed location.
It's
So
a big bathroom.
It won't be
it's
clean.
a
Nice.
big bathroom.
It's got tile.
but it's got air supply in there. So I mean, hey.
And piss-soaked floors.
And air fresheners.
You're welcome. Also, we have a Patreon if you'd like to help us out there. There's a link down below to thrallsmetal.com where our store is. If you'd like to get one of our shirts, we do need to load up on those. But if you'd like to help us on Patreon, the link is down there. And of course, thank you all for liking, subscribing. Again, all of that shit. It means the fucking world to us. It's just insane to see this channel grow, and I still struggle thinking of things to say at the end of these videos in terms of just how else can I tell you thank you so fucking much. It's amazing doing this.
He's gonna offer reach arounds at Denver Death Fest.
Not gonna do that.
Give this man $5, watch what happens.
No, it'd be full frontal. You're gonna look me in the eyes. We're gonna share a moment.
It'll be double Dutch rudder time.
John's filming.
And we'll have the booth
Miller's
for
on
that.
sound.
We'll have the booth labeled out on the website.
Yep, you'll see.
I won't wear gloves. Anyway, not fucking around. Thank you all so much, and we will catch you later.